Heya, cryptozens. Tonight's stories. Fail Hydra. World acts against Russian darknet markets. U.S. reps consider legislation on El Salvador's Bitcoin. Georgia Central Bank preps crypto regs. It's 10 p.m. Pacific time. The date is April 5th, 2022. Welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. I'm your host, Nick. The cover model for this podcast is Tex, and together we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, metaverse space, and the industry that surrounds it. We bring you news stories on familiar topics. And keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. Sberbank. We talked about them a while back before the invasion, actually. And then later last month. Sberbank was granted the right to issue what the Russian government calls digital financial assets, which is kind of an ambiguous term. It's a catch-all from everything from tokenized commodities to securities to stablecoins, even crypto assets like NFTs. So their price has absolutely tanked on the London Stock Exchange. And as a result of Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine, so in the middle of all that, an altcoin appears. Called Sbercoin, it showed up almost exclusively on PancakeSwap. And so in the middle of all this financial chaos, all this turmoil, some enterprising soul created an altcoin to exploit the situation. Now, Business Insider, it seems, thinks that this is real. In their article, they wrote, quote, on March 17th, the Russian central bank granted Sberbank a license to issue its own cryptocurrency, according to media reports. A Sbercoin cryptocurrency launched the same day, although a spokesperson for Sberbank said that the bank had no official connection with the coin. I'm not buying it. Frankly, with the sanctions in place, it doesn't even matter whether they made a coin or not. Without a way to spend it, it's not going to be very useful. And frankly, the website is horrible. Grammatical and spelling errors, no branding from the bank, not one syllable of the Russian language. It's got pretty much every hallmark of a scam coin. You'd think if Sberbank was releasing a coin, especially in the conditions they're in right now, we would have heard about it. At the very least, there would have been a tweet or something about it. But Sberbank's Twitter account has been silent since May of last year. It's just not real. Now, before we get into tonight's stories, let's take a quick look at the markets. At the time of writing, the global crypto market cap is $2.13 trillion. That's down 1.01% since yesterday. The top 5 cryptos by market cap are Bitcoin down 1.04%, Ethereum up 1.52%, Tether, Binance Coin up 0.5%, and USDC. The global NFT market cap is up over $10.16 billion. That's down 1.4%. According to the coin market cap, the top 5 NFT collections by sales volume are Mutant Apes up 0.04%, Bored Apes up 0.03%, Pudgy Penguins up 0.04%, Cool Cats up 0.43%, and Uzuki down 0.04%. Now keep in mind, some of these collections have very volatile prices, so do your own research. Fail Hydra. World acts against Russian darknet markets. Okay, so there's a couple of them here. First up was Germany. Frankfurt's Central Office for Combating Cybercrime and the Federal Criminal Police Office conducted a joint operation. And that joint operation was against the Russian darknet marketplace Hydra Market. They shut down the servers and seized over $25 million in Bitcoin. See, crypto is just bad money for criminals. So, according to a federal police statement, German police, quote, secured the server infrastructure of the world's largest illegal darknet marketplace, Hydra Market, and thus closed it. They also got 543 Bitcoin. Now, this Hydra Market had around 18 million customers. They had over 19,000 registered sellers. In 2020, it generated more than $1.3 billion in revenue. This was a Darknet platform that was accessible on the Tor network. It had been around since 2015. And not only was it a marketplace, but they built on a Bitcoin mixer. They built in a service to make digital transactions hard to trace. Makes investigating very difficult. So while that was going on, U.S. law enforcement, they were also getting busy. Now, they were sanctioning Garantex. So not as exciting as what Germany did, but still important. So the Treasury Department got together with a bunch of other agencies. Justice, FBI, DEA, IRS, Homeland Security was in there. They all got together to sanction Garantex. According to Treasury, this is part of an effort aimed at, quote, disrupting the proliferation of malicious cybercrime services, dangerous drugs, and other illegal offerings. So what they're saying is that Garantex had willfully disregarded anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing requirements. They said that the people running Garantex were exhibiting, quote, wanton disregard for regulations and compliance. Investigation found more than $8 million connected to ransomware attacks had gone through Hydra. And in that, Garantex had facilitated more than $100 million in illicit transactions. Treasury also listed more than 100 crypto addresses connected to the Hydra and Garantex operations and, quote, specially designed nations from which assets are blocked and U.S. persons are prohibited in dealing with them. Not only that, but they determined that Hydra was, quote, reasonably likely to result in or have materially contributed to a significant threat to the national security, foreign policy, or economic health or financial stability. So, really bad guys. In February this year, Russia itself took aim at some of their own. The Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs took down 4 Darknet platforms. Those platforms made over $260 million in crypto from selling stolen credit cards. Those marketplaces were Ferrum Shop, Trump Stumps, Sky Fraud Forum, and UAS Store. U.S. reps consider legislation on El Salvador's Bitcoin. So this is a bill. It's a bipartisan effort called the Accountability for Cryptocurrency in El Salvador Act, ACES. And it's a mirror or a companion piece to the bill that came out of a Senate committee in March. Like I said, it's a bipartisan effort. It was Norma Torres, a Democrat out of California, and Rick Crawford, a Republican from Arkansas. They say the idea is to prevent damage to the U.S. financial system. And they're saying that this would be damage due to El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender. Torres tweeted out, quote, El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin is not a thoughtful embrace of innovation, but a careless gamble that is destabilizing the country. Now, from a report produced by Torres, quote, the legislation directs the State Department to produce an analysis of El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender and the risks for cybersecurity, economic stability, and democratic governance in El Salvador, and create a plan to mitigate potential risks to the U.S. financial system. Now, let's just be clear on these so-called risks. El Salvador's GDP is roughly $25 billion. The U.S., $21 trillion. I just don't think El Salvador's economy has enough mass. I don't think it has enough weight to seriously affect the U.S. economy in that way. Now, the piece that it matches is one that was put out by another bipartisan group. Senators Reich, a Republican from Idaho, Bob Menendez, a Democrat from New Jersey, and Bill Cassidy, a Republican from Louisiana. This was put forward on February 16th. On March 23rd, it advanced out of committee. So what this was supposed to do was have the Secretary of State, as well as other federal department and agency heads, report to Congress. They would have 60 days to come up with a plan to, quote, mitigate any potential risk to the United States financial system posed by the adoption of cryptocurrency as legal tender. Now, they're not just talking about El Salvador here, really. They're actually talking about other countries too that accept the US dollar. These are countries like Ecuador, Zimbabwe, Marshall Islands. Torres's report cited a report by the IMF, and it said the use of Bitcoin as legal tender was a large risk related to the financial stability, financial integrity, and consumer protection. She said, quote, El Salvador is an independent democracy and we respect its right to self-govern, but the United States must have a plan in place to protect our financial systems from the risk of this decision, which appears to be a careless gamble rather than a thoughtful brace of innovation. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele reacted to the introduction of legislation in February. He urged the United States to, quote, stay out of his country's internal affairs. When the bill advanced out of committee, he said, quote, the U.S. government does not stand for freedom. Georgia Central Bank preps crypto regs. We're not talking about the U.S. state. This is the nation in Europe. And as an aside, I see the numbers of where my listeners come from, and I have a dedicated set of listeners in Georgia. Every day, they listen like clockwork. I appreciate you. Anyway, like I said, this is the nation in Europe, and it's not a huge country, but they do love their crypto there. That country, it sits on the Black Sea, and it accounts for almost 1% of Bitcoin mining. It has over $1 million in monthly unregulated crypto turnover. Looks like the days of the under-regulation is about to come to an end, though. The governor of the National Bank of Georgia said that the central bank was ready. They've already put together a draft of the regulatory legislation. This was done taking into account the requirements of international agencies. They said they weren't really sure how big the Georgian crypto market is. Part of that is because of the lack of regulation. Moneyval is the Council of Europe's money laundering monitoring body, and they're estimating that the monthly transaction volume at 3.5 to 5 million Georgian lari. That's $1.09 to $1.64 million monthly. And it was at that point that Moneyval urged the Georgian authorities to, quote, strengthen the practical application of their measures to combat money laundering and financing of terrorism. According to the central bank, this was written with the assistance of the International Monetary Staff, the same IMF that's really against making Bitcoin legal tender. They also said that it complies with the International Financial Action Task Force requirements. This is a big difference because currently, if you're a financial institution in the country of Georgia, you are not allowed to provide virtual asset exchange and transfer services. That said, such a small country has a huge representation in Bitcoin mining. Under 4 million people in the entire country, and they make up 1% of the total global Bitcoin hash rate. They've got lots of hydropower. In fact, free electricity is provided to private residences. It's something that they're doing to try to keep people in the region. And that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So, tell me, have you bought any of that Sbercoin? What about now that you know that it's not from the actual Sberbank? Are you going to keep it? Sell it before people get wise? And are people even going to get wise to it? Maybe it becomes so bad that it's like a cliche, becomes a meme coin. Tell me what you think. Send me an email at nick@cryptoovernighter.com. That's nick@cryptoovernighter.com. Oh, check out my other podcast, Crypto in 5 Minutes. We're up to 39 educational podcasts, 5 minutes to explain one concept in crypto. And as always, may peace